In today's world of market volatility and uncertainty, your retirement plans need to be front and center. With ever-changing tax laws, healthcare worries, and an unpredictable stock market, don't overlook the vulnerability in your retirement planning. Protecting your family and estate will be difficult with shifting policies in Washington. It's more important than ever to keep an eye on retirement.
Hi, and welcome into Eye on Retirement, the weekly show that keeps you in the know about all things retirement. I'm Rick Everett of Market Advisory Group, and in this episode, I'm joined by Jonathon McCoy of Market Advisory Group. He's a financial advisor, as well as Joshua Cicora from Market Tax Services. He is the lead CPA there. Bill Vawter is with Market Medicare Advisors, and Gerald Eidelman of Eidelman Law Firm, who make up the full complement of what you could be utilizing for your retirement planning. Jonathon, I'm going to jump in with you in this episode. A person came to you recently that was basically a little bit overwhelmed with all of the aspects that go into planning retirement. And there is a lot of planning, from the financial aspects to the tax liabilities, Medicare guidance, as well as estate planning. And I want you to share, if you would, with our audience a little bit about that client.
Well, she had a lot going on, and it's a bit of a struggle just to keep this story as brief as possible, but ultimately she came to us when she was actually closer to around 65 years old, starting to get curious about what's it going to take to file for Social Security, retire from her work, start taking income from her retirement plan, switching off of the health insurance that her employer had been providing for years. And it's the similar struggle that a lot of folks that we meet with go through, right? Where we just don't know what we don't know. We don't know exactly where to go for all of this advice. And ultimately, she came to one of our educational classes, an in-person event where she was there to learn about Social Security. Really what it evolved into was we needed to enlist the full complement of professionals that we have here at Market Advisory Group to make sure that we weren't missing a lot of those details around especially the health insurance. That was the most recent need. She'd begun working with us about 3 years ago, so we'd helped transition her into more of a retirement style of investment portfolio, but her most recent concern was actually on Medicare and what it was going to take. She actually had experience working in the hospital system, had helped with the claims process for a number of the patients there, so she was somewhat familiar with Medicare, but had never been through this process of what do I do to get off of the work plan and onto whatever Medicare coverage was going to be required, and that's where Bill and his team really stepped in.
Bill, share with us a little bit about your role in helping this client.
Okay, so in this case, our Medicare advisor, Corey, met with her to explain what the transitionary period is to move from group insurance over to Medicare. There's a timing issue that you need to schedule that just right so you're not without one or the other. And he explained how we go about doing that, how we get people enrolled onto Medicare. He walked her through the various choices, the various companies that are out there, and explained all of her options and choices. We handle a variety of companies, so we're not really locked into any one. And it made it easier for her to decide which company she wanted to go with, how she wanted to cover her prescriptions, and so on. I mean, we try to make it easy for people.
Now, our Medicare advisor also had Jonathon in the room, the financial advisor, to make sure that the adjustment to her health insurance costs was still within the budget and make sure that no other adjustments were necessary, correct?
Yeah, and even though we hadn't discussed specifically Medicare from the get-go when we initially met her a few years ago, we knew it was going to be something we needed to focus on. So when we were building that longer-term income plan for her, we had already discussed sort of behind the scenes with Bill and his team with Market Medicare Advisors, what was it going to cost? How was that going to affect her budget? And that's part of what helped guide us in making the investment management recommendations as well as the income withdrawal recommendations, which started to circle back in when we're doing this type of income planning. We also look at what are the tax ramifications of the various assets that people own, whether it be your 401k, an IRA, a Roth IRA, several former employer plans. We have people that have moved from one job to another throughout their career. And in this gal's case in particular, she had been investing in the Roth portion of her employer plan, and she didn't know up front that maybe wasn't the most efficient way to be saving based on what her future tax situation was. That's where Joshua's team stepped in with Market Tax Services as well, was just to first of all take a look at, does it make sense to continue contributing to the pre-tax or to the Roth, or to a little bit of both. That's a process we walk through with everyone that comes through the office, but ultimately that's where Joshua's team stepped in and helped give us some guidance on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you understand that when we talk to people, we often recommend investing in that Roth account, that there's lots of tax benefits that go with it. However, it doesn't really work out in every single situation, and this is a great example of when it didn't. Because she was working now, her income was higher. When she was retiring, her primary source of income was going to be Social Security. So we were anticipating a drop in the income, which would correlate to a drop in taxes. So when she was contributing to the Roth right now, she was paying taxes at a higher rate than what she was anticipating to have in the future. So we talked about how this may not be the right time to do those Roth contributions. Let's focus on the Roth work after you retire, and right now take that tax deduction by contributing on a pre-tax basis.
Yeah, ultimately, it helped reduce taxable income both during her working career as well as after, and we had to take that 5 to 10 year to even 15-year look down the road just to see what should we be doing today to help manage that.
That's right.
Now, Gerald Eidelman is with Eidelman Law Firm, and Gerald, it's my understanding that this lady had a will, but it had not been updated for years. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it was quite old. It was, I think, 15 years old, and she hadn't accounted for her parents' death, who were at the time the executor and sometimes the beneficiary of some of her assets. And we wanted to make sure that it's not only the will, but that all the other assets she had were properly titled in such a way that the or properly designated beneficiary to make sure that her wishes were carried out. And most of what that took was looking over her assets and having her make sure that she had her beneficiaries in place at the bank and different places. And also we work with Market Advisory Group to make sure that her accounts were properly designated with beneficiaries that she had intended to benefit.
Jonathan, would this be a stellar example of the whole team that people can utilize at Market Advisory Group coming together to help solve a common interest for a client?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the underlying reason behind why we've built a team as we have, so that in the same room at the same time we can bring everyone under one roof and not have to send people down the street to Ted's CPA service or up the road to whoever the law firm or estate planning attorney might be. We were running into this issue very early on in our business as financial advisors, that we were not getting a good congruent flow of information to our clients. We were having to send them multiple different directions. So we decided ultimately it's best to do this all in-house so we can communicate and have these exact conversations in the moment with people one-on-one during their consultation process, which, by the way, we provide as a 100% complimentary service to come in and talk to any of our financial professionals in starting your retirement planning process.
So Joshua, Bill, Gerald, you all feel confident that this client was a lot more at ease upon leaving than they were when they initially came in?
Absolutely.
Yes,
She's happily retired today, I can tell you that.
Very
Just
good.
actually had Josh and his team work on her tax return. So
Awesome, awesome. Another example of how having a holistic approach to retirement can also work for you. At Market Advisory Group, that's exactly what we provide. A holistic approach to retirement, whether it's the investment strategy, the tax guidance, Medicare guidance, or estate planning. Market Advisory Group provides all of those services under one roof, giving you a holistic approach to retirement. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no obligation consultation with our team, our operators are standing by right now for your call at 316-252-8707. 316-252-8707. We'll be back after this.
When people work with Market Advisor Group, they get a feel of sense of family. There's a lot of relationships that are made and going on in this conference room, and we really take a lot of pride in that and a lot of satisfaction in that.
Every client we work with, we make a custom-made plan to fit them and help reach their goals in life. And then another thing that makes us unique is We want to meet quarterly with our clients and have reviews.
Market Advisory Group, we have a process, and the process we take people through is first to understand what they have, understand who they are, and then we put together an income plan for them and show them how they can look forward to retirement and not look, though retirement is going to be a stressful time. It needs to be a stress-free time.
A few unique features of working with Market Advisor Group is holistic in-house financial consultants. We've got an in-house CPA, Joshua, an in-house estate planning attorney, Gerald, an in-house Medicare advisor, Bill. We rely on all of those professionals for, again, additional service within our consultative process, making sure that we've got the advice and the expertise behind the recommendations that we make.
You know, as an advisor, I'm not there to sell them one way or the other. I'm there to educate them, to let them know what their choices are. Then I try to help them make the right choice where they can save money and feel confident in their decision.
Absolutely, the best part of my job is getting a stack of paperwork from somebody and they don't know what to do, and then I can turn around and give them back a tax return, but also to be able to explain what they can do next year that will give them a better answer than what they had this year.
When we've got clients that are calling and they need to help out a child or need to help out a grandchild or need to help themselves out and they're in a situation they didn't expect to be in, I really relish the opportunity to help them through that, help them make the educated decisions in somewhat stressful situations, because a lot of folks don't have that type of counsel.
We meet with so many people one-on-one in this office that don't ever end up becoming a customer or doing business with us, and that's okay. But when they leave our office, we know that we've helped them either get some answers to some of the questions they had or get some clarity on maybe their own path.
But one of the things that we hear all the time is, I wish I would have met you guys 10 years ago, because how much further could I be down the road? Well, Johnny Appleseed said, you know, when's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When's the second best time? Today. And so if we can help people today going forward, that just brings an incredible amount of comfort and excitement for us to come to work every day.
Hi, and welcome back into Eye on Retirement. I'm Rick Everett of Market Advisory Group. Along with me from Market Advisory Group is Financial Advisor Jonathon McCoy. Also joining us in this episode, lead CPA from Market Tax Services, Joshua Cicora, from Market Medicare Advisors, Bill Vawter, and from Eidelman Law Firm, Gerald Eidelman. One of the biggest concerns when married couples come in to plan for retirement is how the spouse might be taken care of or should be taken care of in the event of one spouse passing prior to the other. And Jonathon, you had a client with just this situation that came in recently.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So this client in particular had seen some of our information and actually attended one of our in-person events as well that was specifically focused on tax management and retirement. And his biggest concern was the fact that he is 15 years older than his wife. And the bigger concern there was if something happened to him, he was in his mid-80s at this point, although surprisingly he had worked all the way up until he was 85 years old. But at this point, he had decided that it was important to start focusing on and had started putting a plan into place to make sure that his wife could survive financially on the financial assets that he had built as the breadwinner of their relationship over his working career. So the thing that struck us when he came in to talk to us for the first time was he'd been working with a certified financial planner for many years, over a decade, and this financial planner had sort of sold him on the idea that their financial management practice did have a tax department in place. But after several years of asking questions, sort of hitting his head up against a wall, in the tax environment in general around what is the future for his wife going to look like, especially tax-wise, he found that he just wasn't getting the answers. And what he quickly realized was that his tax professional was a tax preparer more so than a tax advisor, and ultimately was the reason he came in to talk to us at Market Advisory Group in the first place. We had one of our lead CPAs, Pat, meet with him one-on-one and got Joshua involved in the process as well to start that discussion on what are the tax implications regarding a surviving spouse, especially considering a vast majority of his retirement assets and their retirement assets as a household were saved in pre-tax retirement accounts. The taxes had never been saved. So that was something that Joshua had to step in and help us out with.
Show your role, Joshua.
Yeah. So Pat highlighted to the client that when the first spouse passes, the second spouse isn't going to necessarily lose all the income. They still may have half or more of their combined income, but all their tax attributes, the tax rates, the deductions, get cut in half. So that means even though the income may drop a little or even stay the same, their taxes are going to go up just by the change in their filing status. So we kind of talk through how that would impact their taxation going forward when the first spouse does pass, and how, because of the size of their portfolio, they had sizable required distributions that were going to become even more expensive on in a tax perspective. So then we wanted to talk about and crafted a plan to start dealing with those taxes today, rather than waiting it till however many years down the road when the first one of the spouses pass.
Bill Vawter with Market Medicare Advisors. How did the health care component come into play in this scenario?
Well, in this particular situation, they were in the traditional version of Medicare. They had Medicare supplements that were really properly priced. There's quite a variance in that world, but they were okay there. Where the issue that I ran into with them was with their prescription drugs. As I recall, he wasn't taking any, and she was taking a small handful. But if she would just move to a different prescription drug plan, it would save her quite a bit of money. He, on the other hand, was paying about $80 a month for a prescription drug plan when he could have gotten by with one for about $10 a month. And so I, helped him juggle some things around there to save some money.
And this was something that they hadn't even come in to talk to us about, the Medicare side of it. It was, I asked one simple question in our meeting is, have you taken a look or a review at your Medicare supplement plans anytime recently? They said, no, we've been sticking with the same plans for several years. So as part of the complimentary consultation, that's where we brought in Bill and his team just to answer a couple of simple questions, which ended up saving them several dozens of dollars a month in this case, but it was still worthwhile. Very simple questions to ask.
Gerald Eidelman of Eidelman Law Firm, was there an estate plan in effect in this scenario?
Yes, they had a very extensive estate plan with a trust. Part of the situation was that these were second marriages for both of them, and they had children from prior marriages. So there was a desire for the husband to provide for his wife without disinheriting his kids. So a lot of what we did was to review the trust, make sure that that was going to occur, that his wife was going to be taken care of during her lifetime, and that when she died, his part of the estate would go to his kids. And we also make sure that that all of their accounts with Market Advisor Group were properly titled, and we're going to pass through that trust so they'll be controlled and they be accomplishing his wishes or their wishes, to say.
So there were some slight adjustments that needed to be made?
Yes, absolutely, and that's true of most estate plans. I tell people that you need to review them every 3 to 5 years. It's a good idea. Laws change and circumstances change, and it's a good idea to have them review, and we do that, or I do that, I should say, for free.
Jonathan, this seems like another prime example of a client coming in that if somebody was just seeing a financial advisor, they'd be sending them down the street to see a CPA, down the street, another street, to see somebody with Medicare guidance, as well as an estate plan.
It's not just as simple as knowing where to put your money in the market, whether it's stocks, bonds, annuities, all these different sources of income that you may have in retirement. You really have to take a look at the entire picture. And as I mentioned, we as financial advisors early on in our practice were sort of beating our heads up against the wall without the assistance of the in-house professionals that we have. We've learned so much as a team from each other that helps to improve the way that we build plans for our clients every day.
The holistic approach to retirement, and that's exactly what we do at Market Advisory Group, all under one roof. Estate planning, financial advice, Medicare guidance, as well as tax planning, not just tax preparing. If you'd like to set up a complimentary, no-obligation consultation to take a second look at your life savings, please give us a call. Our operators are standing by at 316-252-8707, or go to our website at ionretirement.com. We'll be back after this.
How confident are you in your current financial plan? Do you know with certainty how the recent market volatility will affect your future hopes and dreams? How much are you paying in taxes? And how much are you losing to unnecessary high fees? You didn't work to save this money so that you could spend your time worried in retirement. Now is the time to take charge of your finances so you can feel confident about your future. Call in during the next 30 minutes of today's show only to set up an absolutely complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review that will result in your own customized written plan. This is a $999 value that we're giving away complimentary to the first 10 people who respond. We'll start with a full-blown analysis of what you already have, by running a report to untangle how much you are currently paying in fees, how you're allocated for risk, and what it's costing to work with your current advisor. Next, we'll identify your goals. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? Where do you want to go, and who do you hope to go there with? Is your current financial plan set up to get you there without mishap? Let's design a roadmap to create a financial plan you can follow with confidence. Get the piece that so many people are missing from their retirement. Find out how having a written plan can make a difference to your retirement dreams. Call now to schedule your complimentary, no obligation, full-blown financial review today.
Hi, and welcome back to Eye on Retirement. Jonathon McCoy is a lead advisor with Market Advisory Group. And Jonathon, in the two scenarios that we just went over during this episode of Eye on Retirement, both of them real life scenarios that played out in your office, and both of them illustrating the need to have more than just a financial advisor involved. You and the team were able to come together, and in the first case, somebody who was completely overwhelmed with retirement, not only put them at ease, but help them in all aspects of the retirement planning.
Yeah, and we didn't have to leave her in the position where she was spending countless hours on end researching, looking on web browsers, not knowing what to look up in the first place to find all of these answers, let alone sitting with a financial advisor that doesn't have the access to the resources that we do here at Market Advisory Group, and being able to call on Bill, Joshua, Gerald, and all of their teams as well to make sure that we have all that advice on hand in the moment. We're not hunting up and down the street for all this advice in different locations or getting contradictory advice. I think that was one of the big challenges that we found early on, is that you may have a good financial planner, a good financial advisor, a good CPA, a good estate planning attorney, a good Medicare advisor. They all can be good at what they do, but if they're not communicating, there's going to be something that gets missed. And there almost always was, even for our clients, very early on before we started growing this team. The biggest lesson that we learned was that we can't do it all ourselves as single individual professionals. And while we love building that relationship one-on-one, we feel that that relationship with the team is going to be the most beneficial way to help our clients through retirement. And it doesn't have to cost people an arm or a leg or additional, a la carte fees for Joshua's time or Bill's time or Gerald's time or any part of their team. We're looking to incorporate all of these services for the same or lower cost than you might already be paying one of the big shop financial advisors we see on every street corner these days. The fees that they charge are quite often the same, if not slightly higher, than what we charge here at Market Advisory Group, yet we're able to enlist the additional services of our great team.
Jonathon, is it safe to say if somebody is working with a financial advisor who's trying to give them tax advice or Medicare guidance or estate planning advice, they're more than likely stepping out of bounds from what they are legally supposed to be offering in the form of advice?
It's incredibly important to know how your financial professional is licensed and what advice they're actually certified to give. I think the biggest misstep that we find in this and where advisors step out of their lane is most often with tax management. We find people that come to us and their withholdings are way off on their retirement withdrawals. Their Social Security benefits are being impacted unnecessarily because of where they're pulling their income from. Joshua can elaborate for hours on end on the number of different situations where we've seen these things essentially messed up for folks because that tax advice was given by someone who is not certified to give that advice. It's something that even myself as a financial advisor, I try to keep at arm's reach from giving any kind of tax advice and using the professionalism and the license that Joshua has to give that type of advice.
Joshua, have you seen more than one example of somebody coming in to Market Tax Services, or you being brought into a consultation at Market Advisory Group and finding that advice that somebody did get from a box store advisor was completely inaccurate?
Yes, many times we've seen that sitting in the conference room. Sometimes it's straight out wrong advice. Sometimes it's well-intentioned advice that's just outdated. In the last couple of years, we've seen a flurry of legislative activity changing the tax landscape, and a financial advisor is focused on many other things. I'm focused on tax all the time. That's all I do, and so I can bring that to the table for the advising clients.
Jonathan, in the second scenario that we played out, again, a real-life scenario that happened at Market Advisory Group, the primary concern was that of making sure loved ones were taken care after somebody would pass. And I'm assuming that's a scenario that plays out quite often.
Yeah, exactly. And especially this is a heavy hitter, that second story was a heavy hitter on the tax management side, both for now and in the future when there's one surviving spouse, as well as the estate planning side. This couple had a fairly extensive estate plan already put in place that just simply needed some updating and a little bit of refinement based on how the various investments had performed, how different buckets of how this gentleman had his portfolio set up had sort of grown obtusely from each other and unevenly, so that the assets that were originally intended for one individual or another in his family were not going to be quite as evenly broken up as he originally had intended. And through Gerald's assistance, and actually even working somewhat hand in hand with his existing estate planning attorney, believe it or not, someone that doesn't work with Market Advisory Group, we at least still can open up those lines of communication to make sure that everyone's on the same page, that things are being updated and edited as we go forward, whether it's the tax plan, the Medicare, or the estate planning. In this case, all three needed to be changed and updated. It just so happened in this case that the taxes were the big concern that he found for his potentially future surviving wife. If she lives past his age, she was going to be significantly impacted by the taxes on the required minimum distributions from their retirement accounts. That was his initial real pain that he came in to see us about.
Jonathan, you stated that people working with a financial advisor that's from one of the ABC box store advisory groups on any street corner, they're paying the same or more than what they could be utilizing at Market Advisory Group and getting the full umbrella of services.
That's correct. And ultimately what you're paying for financial advice is just that. You're paying for advice. You're paying for service. A lot of people, I think, get this confused with, we're paying for a certain level of investment performance. Well, it's no secret that all financial advisors have access to essentially the same market. Not necessarily using the same funds or tools or different investment products, but understanding that all financial advisors are still somewhat subject to the will of what the market is doing. And we're not just talking stocks and bonds, we're also looking at commodities and currencies and different things like that to determine where does someone's money need to be placed. It's what we focus on as financial advisors, but we've got to be able to enlist those additional services because that's ultimately what you're paying for in a financial plan.
Isn't your life savings worth a second look? At Market Advisory Group, we provide a holistic approach to retirement to include the financial advising, tax planning, Medicare guidance, and estate planning. And it's all under one roof. Our operators are standing by for a complimentary consultation for you at 316-252-8707.
This broadcast is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific investment opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in the states where it is registered or is excluded or exempt from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by security regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. Legal services are offered by Eidelman Law Firm. Tax services offered by Market Tax Services. Market Advisory Group does not provide legal or tax advice. Investment advisory services are offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This broadcast is copyrighted by Market Media Network. All rights reserved.